First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Well, everyone, Greg Nibbler here with Fox 12 Now. Thanks for joining us. This is breaking news coming to you from our digital desk, talking about the results of the jury's findings from the PacifiCorp trial. Now, we did find out they were being held liable for some of those fires from 2020. And now today we learned more about the punitive damages. To break this down for us is joining right now Connor, who's got all the details about that. You were there at the trial. You've been following this really from the beginning. You've been on the ground with all of this, and maybe you can kind of bring us up to speed a little bit on what's happened so far, and then talk about today.
Yeah, so basically what happened on Monday was the jury, they found PacifiCorp liable, responsible, however you want to word it, for starting or contributing to 4 of the 2020 Labor Day wildfires. Now, this is significant because the state hasn't even completed investigations for any of these wildfires that tore through the state, burning millions of acres. And this is the first time that victims can actually point blame to someone or some organization for burning homes and their property. And so on Monday, what happened was the jury essentially awarded the victims in total about $72 million in damages. But what they did over the last 48 hours, what lawyers tried to prove, is that PacifiCorp had a history of negligence, and these obviously should have been prevented. And PacifiCorp has a history of being reckless. And so what happened today was the jury essentially said, yes, that is true. We think the victim should get even more money. And so what they decided on is the jury, the victims will get 0.25 times the amount that was awarded on Monday, meaning you take 72-ish million, times it by 0.25, add that number, and you get roughly about $90 million that'll be handed out. But the lawyers emphasized to me, the lawyers for the plaintiffs, that more money could be shelled out from PacifiCorp to victims, especially the whole class of people, which is about 5,000 victims.
So with that 90 some million, and just to understand this and breaking it down as far as that 0.25, so is that in addition to the damages that are going to be paid out for replacing property and those kinds of issues, and this is just purely off of the punitive damages that were already there, or am I misunderstanding that?
So what's happening is the punitive damages, they're being added to the already determined damages. So, doing the math, it's about 18 million extra dollars that will be awarded to about 17 plaintiffs. And that includes economic, non-economic damages. So losing property, for example, having, to pay for hotels, places to stay, trying to basically rebuild their lives in those damages, and also emotional damages as well.
As far as the precedence of something like this, have we seen this happen with other power companies in other places, or is this a pretty groundbreaking ruling here?
So for the state of Oregon, this is very groundbreaking. We saw this happen in California with Pacific Gas and Electric. They were found liable and responsible for starting the Paradise Fire. I believe it was either 2017, 2018, but it was a very significant fire in California. More than 80 people lost their lives in Paradise. And that company had to shell out millions of dollars to victims and their families, essentially bankrupting Pacific Gas and Electric. But there's a little caveat there, because I was actually a customer of PG&E at the time. And what happened was all the payment to the victims, well, the customers essentially had to pay it out. So they saw the rates go up.
Is that the concern that could happen here? That same kind of thing?
That is a concern that could happen. PacifiCorp said during the trial through arguments that if they're found liable for punitive damages, then they could possibly go bankrupt. And so it will be interesting to see what will happen to the customers as well.
So there's a lot yet to be determined on this. And I know they did say, I read something that they plan to appeal some of this. Is that right?
That's correct. They plan to appeal that process. I'm assuming will start as soon as possible. PacifiCorp still believes that their equipment did not start or contribute to any of the fires. They did point out, and it's fair and important to point out, the Santiam Canyon fires, the Beachy Creek fire that contributed to most of that destruction, did start from a lightning strike 3 weeks prior. But what happened was when that east wind event came about on Labor Day, it just made the fire explode. But what happened through the trial was the plaintiffs tried to prove, in which they did prove to the jury, that their equipment contributed to that fire with down power lines, not turning off the electrical lines, even despite calls from former Governor Kate Brown's staff and other leaders in the Oregon Department of Forestry and State Fire Marshal's office to do so.
That's a pretty big one right there, if they had calls to do that. Well, I mean, either way, the ramifications of however this works out, whether they win an appeal, whether this goes forward as it is, clearly going to have a big implications for this summer as we enter into fire season. I mean, there's already a couple of wildfires going on now. So how everybody handles that, this is definitely a closely watched case. And anything else that you have to add on to it? I know that's a lot going on. You've got a lot to report on.
It's a lot going on, but the lawyers just want to emphasize to me that $90 million-ish is not the final number. There could be more money coming from PacifiCorp down the line as they figure out more of the finances, especially with the whole class of victims. So they told us it's safe to say, as of right now, $90 million will be coming from PacifiCorp, but expect that number to rise over the next few months or even years.
Well, Connor, thank you for taking some quick time. I know you've got a lot of writing and reporting to do for 4 o'clock news and onwards, so let you get back to it, but appreciate you joining us here.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, there we go. Connor McCarthy joining us. Appreciate his hard work. He's been there, at these trials, sitting through them, trying to understand what's going on and interpreting it for us, because there's a lot of, it's a very complicated thing that's going on there, and understanding exactly what that breaks down to. Really appreciate him doing that for us. And like I said, you can catch more of him at our 4 o'clock news and onward with the full report on that. You can also go to kptv.com. We've got a full report of everything that's happened, even leading up to here, if you want to kind of backtrack and find out more of that. So thanks for joining us. Again, this is Fox 12 Now. If this is your first time watching us, this is what we're able to do here. We can come on with breaking news during the day when it happens, give you a better understanding, a deeper dive of what's going on. We also do interviews. We've got a lot of programming that happens here as part of this show on our regularly scheduled programming. Breaking news, that stops and we come on with this. So thanks for joining us. Remember, wherever you're watching, whether that's on YouTube or our apps or whatever platform you found us on, appreciate that. We're live every weekday at 1 p.m. And then throughout the day when things like this go on, we will be here for you to get you that breaking news and get our reporters who are out there doing the hard work, finding out all this information for us. So thanks for tuning in. We're going to sign off for right now, but appreciate